Hello, everybody, and welcome to Red Wings Daily, presented to you by FanArch. I'm your host, Kirk MckNight, author of The Voices of Hockey, Broadcasters Reflect on the Fastest Game on Earth, and coming to you from the southwest corner of Washington State, 2,454 miles from Little Caesars Arena. Now, the Red Wings were in action at Scotiabank Arena last night, taking on the Toronto Maple Leafs for the fourth time of four in the regular season, and they won for the fourth time out of four. So the Red Wings got a season sweep against a fellow Original Six team. It's got to feel good. Those two have been rivals before in the past. Obviously, when you're both in the league about 100 years, or at least 100 years for the Red Wings, and then even more so for the Maple Leafs, the Maple Leafs have 13 Stanley Cups to the Red Wings 11. The only team that has more than those two is Montreal. So obviously a lot of blood on the ice over that century plus between these two. So to be able to beat them four times in a season, walk away from 8 possible points with 8 points, great feeling to have. Now, Larkin got the game winner in overtime. That was his third overtime goal of the season. I believe he and Cat both had 2. It's a great story, these two. You know, Cat and Larks basically seems like their stats are almost identical about certain things, and before you know it, one pulls ahead of the other and vice versa. So that was his 25th goal. He's still one shy of Cat for the team lead, but that was his third overtime goal, like I mentioned, and he assisted on Edvinsson's goal late in the first period. Before I get to Gibby, I would like to point out that goal. That's a third or fourth time this season that the Red Wings have scored with basically 30 seconds or less left in the period. They did it when I saw them up in Seattle. JVR went the distance, took it to the hole with about 30 seconds left in the second period, and it really just threw the Kraken off their game. They came out in the third period, and the Red Wings were all over them. Nobody scored until Kane or Scott got the game winner with about 4 minutes left. But I'll tell you, the Kraken were not playing and not clicking on all their cylinders in that period. And those are those back-breaking moments when you give up that goal with just seconds left on the clock. You're already thinking, I'm going to get to that tunnel, but that goal makes a huge difference and gives a bit of a different mindset for a team walking into and back out of the locker room. So Ed's got the goal for that, and Larks assisted him, and I believe Raymond assisted him as well. But the number 2 star of the night, which I feel should just be the code number 1 star of the night, is Gibby. 7th straight win, 30 saves. 30 shots allowed and only 1 goal. And so that was, like I said, a 7th straight. He is 16-2 in his last 18, and he has 20 wins on the season now. Now, he started off the season 4-6-1, and he basically was playing second fiddle to Taubes because Taubes started off the season 9-2. I've said this before several times on previous shows, but the roles have reversed. And Gibby's been the one getting the call, especially if there's at least 1 day of rest in between. Usually Taubes, just like tonight against the Wild, Taubes is going to be goal in the second of back-to-back. But Gibby is 16-2 in his last 18, like I said. A lot of people were doubting this acquisition, and I feel like he's all that a lot of us can even talk about because he's been making great and spectacular saves. He's been keeping the team in it. If he gives up 2 or less goals most of the time, if not all the time, they're winning it. And that's all you can ask for out of your team is to give 3 goals so that you can basically keep him in it, and that's what he's done. They only gave him 2 goals in support, and he still was able to pull out the victory. A couple of things about the game last night, special teams wise. Red Wings were 2 for 2 on the penalty kill and 0 for 2 on the power play. But one other thing that I should mention, and this has to do with Gibby, is the fact that Ed's, even though he scored a goal, he kind of divoted after the goal by I think he hooked one of the players on a breakaway that could have gone wrong. He got a penalty shot. Gibby stuffed the penalty shot. So to me, that's wonderful. Only 4 minutes in the penalty box for the Red Wings. Once again, low penalty minutes. Great discipline to carry through the 60 minutes. Other things about it, I said Raymond had another point. Basically, that stretches his points, team points lead. He's the team leader in points by 1 or actually by 2 now over DeBrincat. So great win for the Red Wings. Once again, really showing up on the road, and they're going to have to stay showing up on the road because now they're about to take on a very tough Minnesota Wild team. Now, looking at some of the things, the Red Wings have 66 team points on the season, and the Wild have 65. The Wild are in that division. Colorado lost in a shootout last night to the Ducks, and so doesn't make too much of a difference, but Minnesota sitting at third, but a very solid team, 65 points. The Red Wings are tied for first with 66, and Minnesota's sitting there at third with 65. So they have 4 players on the IR, which bodes well for the Red Wings. That's another huge positive for the Red Wings this season, is that they've been able to stay pretty healthy, knock on wood. But there's 4 players on the IR, including Matt Boldy, which I'm pretty sure he's a pretty good player because I see him on commercials. Isn't that the way it goes? And don't forget the fact that the Minnesota Wild have picked up Quinn Hughes in one of those sweepstakes, and that was a huge move before the other markets started getting a little busier. Quinn was obviously the sought-after player, and everybody was wanting him. Minnesota was the one that ended up with him. So that's a huge defensive obstacle that we're going to be facing tonight up in Minnesota. The Wild are 7-4-2 in their division. That translates into a pretty tough home stretch. Just looking at the Wild moving forward, 7-4-2, especially the Central the way it is, that means they still have quite a bit of games to play against their own division, and it's a division that's really tough. Utah's not going away. They're not necessarily hot on Minnesota's heels, I wouldn't say, but they very well could be. And so you got those 4 teams basically top and bottom, all factoring in for being a playoff spot, with San Jose right in there at the number 8 spot. But do not fall asleep on your division. Minnesota, you got a tough road ahead of you, and that's another thing for the Red Wings to think about going in, is this is a team that's going to be playing pretty hungry, knowing they have to play and really duke it out and cut their teeth on the competition to be able to stay competitive in a very competitive Central Division. Talbs is going to be in the net. I mentioned that before. This is going to be his this will be his 10th time playing on the second of back-to-back games, and he's 2-1-1 in his last 4. So that's actually pretty good. He was 3-4-2. No, he was 1-3-1 previously. So yeah, he's 3-4-2, basically playing the second of a back-to-back. So we'll have to see how things go. Red Wings have a little bit of sleep. I guess it's a little bit later of a start. They gain a couple hours going from, well, they don't gain a couple, they gain 1. But it still is a little bit later of a start for them, maybe give them an extra hour of sleep. And McClellan's mentioned before in press conferences that, when you're the road team, you get a little bit of an advantage. You get fed and you get the ice and all the things like that. So hopefully it will work to the Red Wings' advantage and that they can pull off another 2 points and keep this road trip. It's only a 3-game road trip, but, they are going to still be playing Winnipeg, who is doing a little better than the last time they played them. So we're off to a good start with the 2 points. Hopefully we can make it 4, 5, 6 before coming back to take on the Kings back at LCA next week. Well, I already mentioned Edvinsson. He got the opening goal of opening goal for the Red Wings at least. They fell in a 0-1 hole. I think that was that. No, it wasn't a power play, obviously, because they were 2 for 2 on the penalty kill. But Toronto came out, basically got a goal. I think it was about 4.5 minutes into the game. So you got to wonder sometimes. You get your composure back to you, and like I said before, Edvinsson getting that goal with 18 seconds to go in the first period really will set the tone for the rest of the game for a team as good as the Red Wings are and as well as they're playing. So he is 17th point last night with that goal. And that brings him into a tie for 10th with JT Compher. So when you look at some of the other things that Eds is doing well in, the fact that he's also got as many points as he does is pretty great, because I was looking at his stats, and he's 3rd on the team in blocks, And he's also, well, this is one stat that he probably doesn't want us to sit there and share, but he's also first in the team or second in the team. Maybe no, he is first. He's first in team in penalty minutes, and that's not even counting last night's penalty shot. There was 0 minutes served, but that's also some egg on your face, though. When you basically make a mistake that leads to another team having a penalty shot and having a chance to get a shot and a goal on your goaltender, that's more egg on your face probably than a 2-minute penalty. I guess if they don't make the penalty shot, it's not so much. And if they score while you're in the box, obviously that is the egg on your face. But that's kind of what happened last night. So I think the one thing would be to clean it up a little bit and not be in the penalty box so much, not create so many opportunities for the other team and force your penalty kill unit to be on their heels for as many minutes as they are in the game. But once again, I had already mentioned 4 penalty minutes for the Red Wings out of 60. That is very disciplined. Well, folks, with it being Thursday, it is time for Throwback Thursday, another of my favorite segments. And this week, we're going to go back to October 27th, 1995. Now, that is late 95, so that means that is early in the 95-96 season, the 62-win season for the Red Wings, a season that was quite magical. And one of the magic moments of the whole season was the introduction of the Russian Five. Now, I mentioned that I've authored The Voices of Hockey, Broadcasters Reflect on the Fastest Game on Earth. I didn't mention the fact that it has come out on Audible and on Apple Books in audio format in the last few months. That has to do with the Russian Five for this exactly. The narrator, Chuck Bowler, texted me and said, "You're killing me with the Russian Five," because what a phonetic challenge that is to sit there and say that. Igor Larionov, Sergei Fedorov, Vladimir Konstantinov, Vyacheslav Kozlov, Vyacheslav Fetisov, and those names are rolling off the tongue, in and out, this and that, in certain sections of the Detroit chapter of the Voices of Hockey. So kudos to you, Chuck, for being able to roll those things off your tongue. I don't know how many takes that took for you, but it was probably equally as difficult. This was Ken Cowell's. I'm not sure if Ken Cowell was quite in the booth yet in 95, 96. I know Ken Daniels wasn't, but the Russian Five was back during the 96, 97. So that was a season that I know Ken Cowell was in the booth because he called the Red Wings' first championship in 42 years. But to have to call these players, it's one thing to sit there and read, a section or two out of a chapter of a book, with the luxury of having, being able to cut and retake and all that. Well, when you're live on the air and you're calling 5-syllable names, and also maybe 2 to 3 or 4-syllable first names, this is a tough one. It's like calling. I remember talking to Joe Beninati once. He's for the Capitals, but he was about to call a college football game, and I sat there and said, "Man, I feel for you," because he was calling the Utah Utes, and there's a lot of Polynesian players on that team with 7 or 8 syllables in their name, and it's hard to really connect the consonants with the vowels on those ones. So I think it's equally as difficult to call 5 Russian players 45 seconds at a time, especially as high octane and as offensive as the Russian Five was or were during that time. So the stats on that season, okay, like I said, this was that 62-win season that ended in Game 6 of the Western Conference Finals at the hands of the Avalanche. But Fedorov, 39 goals. Larionov, 21 goals. Kozlov, 36 goals. Vladimir, 14 goals. Fetisov, 7 goals. Assists, Fedorov, 68. Larionov, 50. Kozlov, 37. Vladimir, 20. Fetisov, 35. That's 327 points between those 5 players, folks. Fedorov was leading the team in goals that year, offensive giant. I was thinking about Fedorov, obviously, in his jersey retirement from last week, and that made me think of the Russian Five, and what a wonderful time it was for Red Wings what an offensive team that was, and what a presence that Russian Five was. Everybody was talking about it. Made the cover of Sports Illustrated. They made it kind of like all look like a throwback, like the Fab Five, the old British music invasion kind of thing. So, they didn't win the cup that year of their debut, but they won the next year, like I said. And that game, game 4 against Philadelphia, and that completed the season, or not the season sweep, the Stanley Cup final sweep, was the last time that these 5 would be playing on the ice together, because unfortunately just 6 days after winning the cup, that's when Vladimir and Fetisov were both in that limo wreck that pretty much permanently damaged Konstantinov, and we never got to see him play on the ice again. Quite a shame. Sad day in hockey, sad day in Detroit, but what a beautiful combination and what a beautiful collection of players the Russian Five was. What a story for a team that was already so stacked. And for them to be able to celebrate a Stanley Cup, albeit one Stanley Cup, was obviously something very special. And it was a very special team, a team that everybody probably thought should have won the Stanley Cup in 95, 96. But the fact that they were able to get the makeup win in the following season, a season that it was not expected of them. Nonetheless, a ring is sweeter than 62 wins in the regular season and only 14 in the postseason. Not even 14. It was 10. They didn't even make it to the Stanley Cup final. They didn't even get 12 wins. So yeah, they won 10 in the postseason after winning 62. Now Tampa Bay won 62 in the regular season in 2018, 2019, and didn't win any in the postseason. But let's not get sour grapes going on down there in the Panhandle. The Red Wings, it was a quick makeup, and it was all was forgiven in that summer of '97 when they were able to hoist the Stanley Cup. And a big part of that was that Russian Five compilation that's so hard to pronounce, and it's such a challenge phonetically. Folks, this has been Red Wings Daily. Tomorrow we'll give a little bit of a recap of the Wild game, and we will maybe give a little bit of a preview of the Winnipeg game that's going to be taking place over the weekend. But until then, LGRW from the PNW.